Creation Museum with Roger Patterson and Dr. Jennifer Rivera, and I'm Dr. Georgia Purdom. And we're here to bring you the news today, and some good news, some bad news, some in-between news, but nothing political. So it'll be refreshing. So we have a couple things to start off with. So we are right now offering our lifetime boarding passes. And this is a special offer that's only good until the end of the year, and it will give you passage to the Ark Encounter and to the Creation Museum. And it's really great, a great way to not only have something for you and your family, but there's also passes that you can use to have guests come throughout the year and to really use it as an evangelistic tool. And so we hope that you'll take advantage of that. You can find out more online at arkencounter.com/lifetime.
And you know, Christmas is not far away.
Oh, yeah.
And I've known some grandparents who've bought the lifetime pass.
Yes.
And, you know, for all their grandkids. And I'm like, what a gift, right? Because now they can go to both attractions for the rest of their life at no expense.
Oh, yeah,
so
definitely.
It's an amazing gift.
So nice Christmas gift.
Definitely.
All right, what's next? Oh, Truth Traveler. All right, so this is a really cool new VR experience that we have at Ark Encounter. And how many of you have done the Truth Traveler? All right, we have a couple people. Okay, yeah, I've done it too. It's really cool, isn't it? It's amazing. You really feel like you're flying and soaring and going through time. So Jennifer's going to show just a short little video of it here.
Hello there. You can call me Pod. I have been equipped to navigate the complicated fabric of time and space. Here we go! What a sight!
So, for those of you, I know some of our guests haven't been there yet, you need to check it out when you go. It is an extra ticket to do it, but totally worth it.
Yes, it was very fun. We got to experience it a couple weeks ago while we were down working at a program there, and great ride. And it's a good thing those little handles are there for you to hold on
Because you're like,
because there's some fun movement in those seats.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we're on to our first article.
Okay. So monkey incriminates itself with selfies after stealing a man's phone. So this one's kind of funny. The man noticed his phone was missing, and the next day he calls it and hears it ringing from the jungle. And when he picks it up, sure enough,
you can see
he
some
finds
of
all
the
these
pictures.
images
That one's great. I like that one right there.
on his phone that the monkey had taken.
Now, I've seen this with toddlers and friends at parties who might do nefarious things if they get your phone, but I've never seen it from a monkey before. Very interesting.
So obviously, this is in Malaysia, by the way. Okay, so he lives in Malaysia, has a jungle in his backyard. So these apparently are the kinds of things that can happen. I'm surprised he got it back unharmed, to be honest.
Right, that's what's shocking.
Quite shocked at that, but kind of interesting. Okay.
All right, support for abortion is dropping in many countries worldwide survey. So they did another survey, you know, it's repetitive ones they've done before, where they interviewed 17,000 people from 25 different countries and just asked them a series of questions on their stance on abortion and their views. And what they found is, what they're saying is that support for abortion is actually dropping. But as we were saying, it's so small,
Maybe
right?
and
That
maybe
it's
not, yeah.
right,
Yeah.
maybe not, right? I guess the good thing is it's not rising.
Right, I was going to say, at
Yes,
least we could
that's
say
the
it's
positive
not
side.
on the rise, probably. And it really depended on what country they were looking at. Some countries, which actually I was kind of surprised, because some of these are more liberal countries like Sweden, France, the UK, Spain. They've actually seen support for abortion go down, which is a really good thing, like I say, because those tend to be more liberal countries.
And Germany too, I was surprised.
Germany, yeah.
Germany's went down as well.
Substantially, from 70, it went down from 85% to 76% in Germany. So that's a significant drop in 6 years.
South Korea was the surprising country there. We often think of a lot of Christian, especially Presbyterian influence there in South Korea through missions work over the last 100 years. And there they saw the change go from 59% to 79%. So a dramatic rise in support of that. So we can see how the secularization of cultures, when Christian influence goes down, we're going to see those secular influences rise, and the values are going to change within that culture. Because if you think about the word culture, it comes from cultus in the Latin, which is where we think about, where we get our idea of religious cults and those things. I don't think about it in the negative sense, it's just the Latin root of that word. But the culture is going to reflect the beliefs of the people that are inside of that society. And here we see very clear examples of that.
Yeah, and they talk about, so they say while support for abortion still remains relatively high, support for unlimited and unrestricted abortion is low. And so they kind of broke down the support for abortion into two categories. So those that should believe you should be able to get it for any reason, or those that believe abortion should only be permitted in certain circumstances, like a woman is raped. And the problem with separating it out like that is it does not matter how the child is conceived, right? That child is an image bearer of God, right? They are made in the image of God and they have value, okay? Because they're made in the image of God. And so it doesn't matter how the child's conceived. It shouldn't be broken down into those categories, so to speak. Yes, those are very sad circumstances that happen. We don't want to take away from that at all. But nonetheless, why should the child be killed or punished for something that, they obviously had no control over? So
we still have to go to that core question of what is it in the mother's womb, and it's a human child. It's a living human being that's made in the image of God, and that's always where we have to go, not the circumstances of the individual, but what it is, and that's where we need to base our arguments and ground them in Scripture.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. We have a wonderful new exhibit opening tomorrow night, right? We have our opening ceremony, our Fearfully Wonderfully Made exhibit. I'm sure many in our audience have walked by the exhibit that's going to be opening here in just a day. So we have seen it.
Yes.
And
how
it
many
is
of you
just
tried to peek
beautiful.
through the curtains a little bit while you were walking by?
We have some people doing that.
But what a testament to life and the fact that it is life from the very moment of fertilization.
Yeah, just thinking about, I've worked here at AIG for almost 15 years, and just thinking about the amazing talent from the exhibit design to the artists who are making these sculptures and designing them 3D, and the whole exhibit itself, and the team writing the content and reviewing all of those pieces. We just have such an amazing variety of people that God's brought here. So I think when you walk through there, you are just going to be stunned by the realistic nature of what's being presented, and just the beauty of what life is in the womb as God's created it.
Yeah, and because both Jennifer and I, when we walked through, it's very emotional. It's hard not to, because you just see these these are just little tiny human beings, right? And when you think about what's happening in the world today, that they're allowed to be, killed and ripped from their mother's wombs, it's hard. I think it just brings that home even more. Why we need to fight for life, and why we need to talk about this, and we need to be doing this. Hopefully it is making a difference. I hope the numbers for support are truly dropping, because and we hope that things like, exhibits like this that help people see the reality of what is in the womb, that this is a child, will help people to think very differently about that.
And also know that there's grace. If you did make that decision, there, you can still find forgiveness, in Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And we talk about that in the exhibit. That's an important part.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
All right, next article. Science Mag makes first endorsement in 175 years for Biden. So this is the first time this particular science magazine has endorsed a political candidate. Science magazines, which should really stay out of politics and focus on what their specialty is.
Right, which
science.
is science. Yeah, everything gets politicized nowadays, right? It doesn't matter who you are, what company you are. They've got to say what they think to virtue signal, right, to the rest of the world that we're on board with everyone else, basically, or with a lot of other people.
Scientific American, a magazine that's been around for 175 years. We've seen a lot of amazing photography and nature described to us. Of course, more recently, the level of evolutionary teaching and those types of things has increased, but we can still explore God's earth through these types of magazines and publications, and getting ideas into what research is going on at a little more popular level. Most of you probably don't subscribe to the high-level journals that are out there, so we're getting these things digested in a lot of ways. But here we have what really signals not a change in the magazine, but a change in the culture of the staff. It says here, as they were discussing this, the editor said there was little internal debate over the decision to endorse Joe Biden as a presidential candidate. And so if there's little internal debate, that means there's been a shift in the culture over these things, the culture at the magazine, and that they are truly seeking to politicize these issues. And the things that come up in the article are issues like climate change and other things. And there was a really telling line in here speaking against Trump. It said that Donald Trump has basically damaged the United States and its people because he rejects evidence and science. So as scientists, what's the problem with that statement as we think about it from a scientific perspective?
You want to take it or you want me?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, the thing is that too, I mean, it depends on what type. You have to define what you mean by
Right,
science,
it's such
right?
a broad topic, so.
Yeah, because they would throw evolution into that mix, right? And that's a different type of science. That's historical science. Even things like climate change, you know, there's a lot of debate right now as to what causes climate change, right? The evidence isn't clear, so to speak, on those things, that it's really man-caused. In fact, the evidence tends to lean the other way, that it's probably not man-caused. We just talked about being pro-life in our life exhibit here. You know, obviously Trump is very pro-life because he believes that that's a baby in the mother's womb that should be valued. And so again, they're trying to throw a lot of things under that banner. And even when the evidence is clear, like a baby in the mother's womb, they're going to reject it because of their worldview, because of their ideas to start with.
And it's just as much the interpretation of the
Right.
evidence that many of us reject with regards to man-made climate change and the extent of that and what we should do about it. It's not really the evidence. We all see the same evidence,
Right.
but it's the interpretations that are being used to explain that evidence. And we all have that worldview that we look at those things through.
It was good to see that there are professors who are not
Right.
Christians,
Right.
who were not happy, with their decision because, they've been using the, reading the magazine for years, and now they're getting into this political agenda, and some of them were blatantly saying, we're not
Hey,
happy with this, and this is
don't
not
do this,
appropriate,
yeah.
right? It's just not appropriate.
Well, at the very end, it
place
was
to do
funny
that.
because it was talking about I think it was some sort of press conference or something with Trump, and one of the people there said he was the secretary of the California Natural Resources Agency, said to Trump, "I wish science agreed with you," because Trump was not going along with climate change. And Trump said, "Well, I don't think science knows, actually." And that's a really good point, actually,
Yes.
because again, there are scientists on both sides of the climate change debate. Some are saying it's man-caused, some are saying it's not. So,
Yeah. And that's a logical fallacy called reification, where we give
Right.
personal characteristics to science. Science is a method of understanding, and there are even different ways within science of understanding things. So we can't say science says. That's not
Right.
a logical statement. A scientist can say something and interpret things and present their ideas, but science doesn't tell us things.
right, yeah.
All right, so new eternal sleeper dinosaur species was entombed while still alive. So pretty much what the article is saying is their skeletal remains were so intact, right? And there was so much detail present there. It looked almost undisturbed that we recognized, and they admitted it had to be buried alive,
Yeah,
really quickly,
It
right?
was, I mean, would compare this to something like the remains of Pompeii in Italy, where the volcanic explosion covers the city in ash, and we see people basically trapped in the positions
Right.
that happened there. So they presume, based on the intact structure and the dirt around these skeletons, that they were probably in their burrow when this
Right.
event happened and buried quickly. And that buried quickly, we would certainly agree with, and probably, based on the layers that these things are in, probably related to Noah's flood,
Right.
possibly volcanic activity that's happening at that time, and then covered up by other sediments and mud.
Yeah, and to be pristinely preserved, as they say in the article, it has to be buried quickly, right? A lot of times they say fossils form by something dies, and slowly over millions of years it gets buried. If it dies and it's just laying out there, what happens? It's going to fall apart. It's going to be eaten. It's not going to look pristinely preserved. And so it has to be special events that allow that to happen, like the flood.
And they did make a lot of assumptions in this article.
Well, yeah.
About
They
this
always wanna
dinosaur
imply a
did
lot.
this, yes, this dinosaur did that. But then they do state at the end that they're purely speculation because,
Yeah.
you
We
found
just don't know.
skeletal
And I do
remains.
notice too in the picture that dinosaur looks a bit fuzzy. Okay, so they're trying to, I think, a little bit infer here that possibly it had the beginnings of, or it had feathers of some kind. They want to do that all the time because they want to say birds are modern day dinosaurs, and dinosaurs evolved into birds. And so almost every picture you see of dinosaurs now, they don't look like reptiles. They look more like fuzzy reptiles, kind of.
So they're not inferring, they're infeathering.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I threw that over there for Bodie. Bodie
He had to
will
do
love
that.
one.
Bodie's our pun master, so he's taking that over. Okay.
All right. A Massachusetts women's college describes itself as a women's college that is gender diverse.
Wait a
What do you
minute.
say to this?
You're a women's college, right?
Okay.
Yeah, women's, yeah.
Right.
You're no longer a
but
women's college if you're gender diverse.
They're
I don't know what you are,
right,
but
gender diversity, and they're encouraging everyone to use all their pronouns in every form of communication.
Now,
basically.
10 years ago, we would have assumed this was some type of satirical piece.
Right.
But this headline comes to us today from a new news source called Not the Bee. Now, if you know the Babylon Bee, they're a historic or a satirical website that publishes news stories and things. And it's become so close to reality that now Adam Ford, who also runs Discern News, good news source, has started Not the Bee to reflect that this is not the Babylon Bee, even though you think
it's
it
not
might be.
satire.
It's not
Right.
satire.
It's reality.
It's real.
Yeah, and what's interesting, so they're calling this their chosen name policy. So every student basically gets to select whatever pronouns they want to be referred to and as their chosen name, basically, or their chosen pronouns. And I thought, when I read that, I thought, God already chose. They don't get to choose. We don't get to choose. We don't have a right to do that because we're created in the image of God to be male or female as God created us. And we are that forever. I mean, that's just who we are. It's part of who we are and how God made us. And so it's really denying God's design, right? To say that, no, I want to be this, not this. I want to be what I want to be, not what you made me to be. It's really, again, going against the Creator because they want to rebel. They want to live in their sin.
Yeah. And when they do that, as we read in Romans 1, they're going to become futile and confused in their own thinking. And if you really sit down and analyze this, we're a women's college that's gender diverse, and the phrases they use here in their posts, we seek to support individuals across the gender diversity spectrum, and personal pronouns are essential in affirming the diversity and fluidity of gender identities. If gender is fluid, then there's no such thing as a women's college, and you've just argued yourself out of existence. You have to call yourself something else, and you can't be buying into one part of the Christian worldview, affirming male and female, and then accepting this other social construct that's not real. You're caught between two opinions. You've got to make up your mind. Are you going to be a women's college or are you going to be a gender diverse college?
Right. Yeah. Can't be both.
All right, third-party survey shows explosive church growth in Iran, confirming at least 1 million Christians. So this was good news.
Good
right?
news.
We're seeing
Yay.
explosive growth to the point that really the government officials are baffled by it, and they're doing investigations to trying to find out why is Christianity growing so much. And they do point out in the article that they found that many of those people were looking for a peaceful religion, right?
Yeah. So if you think about Iran, it's primarily a Shia Muslim country, and there are lots of different influences. We think back to the Persian era. So there's some other things, other religious views there, like Zoroastrianism and things that would be connected here. But this is primarily a Muslim-dominated country, and we have seen lots of oppression from the governing authorities, especially with the Muslim clerics who work alongside the government to control the laws in Iran. And so the Islamic Republic of Iran is what is really driving a lot of these things. And Islam is not a religion of peace as much as it wants to claim that, especially for the individuals who are in that religious system. It's a system where you never really know that you can have peace. And that came up in some of the quotes that were given by people as reasons for why they wanted to convert to Christianity away from Islam.
Yeah, and they're really worried. They're actually becoming more worried about this than they are like a military invasion. They call this a cultural invasion because it's the country's changing from inside. And that's always, we always kind of talk about that. That's always the bigger threat, honestly. It's from change from within rather than people trying to hurt you from outside. And so it's actually, this is awesome to hear. They said it's 1.5% of all respondents identified as Christian, which is a number that surpasses 1 million when you extrapolate it to the 80 million Iranian citizens. So that's amazing. And the church tends to flourish under persecution. The early church did, the Iranian church does, the Chinese church does, and we're going to be facing that here in America. We already are facing it, not obviously to the degree that these people are, or in China, but that's increasing here even, and we're having to take stands, and I think as a result, we're going to see the church grow. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. So if you wanted to find out more information about what different religions believe and why we say there's really no peace in a works-based religion. So if you think about, I grew up as a Mormon, Roman Catholicism, Islam. All these are religions of do. What do I have to do to satisfy God, rather than what has God done for me in the person and work of Christ to satisfy that sin debt that I have. So this book series is a few years old, but we've also got some new online courses that will be covering these topics coming up in the next few weeks if I work really hard. But they'll be available for you as well.
Right. So World Religions and Cults, that covers pretty much all the major religions around the world, and looking at them, like Roger said, and even from what they believe about the Creator, what they believe about creation, salvation, and all sin, and all of those things. So it's a great tool.
And the new course you can take right online. Right?
Yeah,
you can finish
it will be.
once he gets it
When
finished.
Roger gets it
It'll be
finished.
available on our website, and you can take the entire course
Yeah.
online. So it'll be that'd be an excellent course, especially for high schoolers too.
Right. High schoolers and
up.
up is what we usually recommend. Yep.
Okay, this is interesting. This is dictionary.com. Dictionary.com aims to help eliminate heterosexual bias in language with the biggest update ever. And you really said it best. It's not that it's,
It's not
the dictionary.
right.
It's devolving.
The language is not evolving, it's devolving, okay? Because it's getting more and more challenging to understand what things mean. Because one of the things that in this article that they point out, just as an example, is they removed all the words, they removed homosexual and homosexuality from references within the dictionary. So you could still look those words up, but as far as they're not referenced in other entries in the dictionary. And they did that because they said, well, homosexuality implies that something is wrong. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's a descriptive term.
I'm a total word nerd, so I love etymology and digging into things and understanding that. And if you think about where we get that word from, homo in Latin means the same, and sexual, we recognize the root there. And so it just means it's a same-sex attraction. Right. And that's all the word means. Now, can certain negative connotations be added to words? Sure. But it's just a purely descriptive word. And from a scientific and clinical perspective, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But they've decided to change the connotation of these things in the dictionary.
Yeah. And you can even sign up for LGBTQIA. Okay, don't ask me. I know what all those letters mean, sadly, but language updates every week. So they will send you updates as to how they're trying to make this dictionary more LGBT blah blah friendly. So even the English grammar, like even with the whole pronouns, like right now, if I wanted to, I could be known by they, them, and their, right?
But
okay,
wait,
so
you're only one person.
I know. Oh no, it can be singular now.
That's right.
See, I'm thinking how.
You're right.
English class just got a lot more interesting. Let's just put it that way.
And this is just a reminder to us that even though he wasn't a godly prophet, George Orwell certainly saw what was coming. And this is just new forms of newspeak, how they're redefining the language to control the talking points in the culture and the society.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they do end by saying, if if we don't talk against this today, if we
Right,
don't do
right.
everything that we can to especially teach the truth to our children,
Right.
then they say, then come tomorrow, you won't be able to speak the truth at all.
Right.
Right,
Because
and
they're
so
trying to
there's-
take our rights to speak against
Yes.
this and to say things against this. So we need to speak the truth in love.
Because
That's
they
really
think
important.
if we control the language, we can control the culture,
Yeah.
we can control the direction of it.
Right.
And so,
Exactly.
all right, divorced couple takes part in a photo shoot to celebrate the end of their marriage. So this wasn't a proposal, all right? This wasn't a wedding. This was a
Yeah.
couple who got divorced
Right.
and did a photo shoot to let their friends
Celebrate it.
and family to celebrate the end of their marriage.
But it was simply a mutual uncoupling. And this is
Yes, a
emblematic
mutual
of how society has denied God's intent for marriage to be one man for one woman for life and turned it into this individualistic, what can marriage do for me? What can I get out of it?
Right.
Rather
Selfish.
than seeing God's plan in all of these things.
And it's really, when I was looking at this, I thought it's really a celebration of ending what God has joined together. I mean, whether they're Christians or not, they entered into a covenant with God when they got married, because marriage is a biblical mandate by God. I mean, something that God put into place. God defines it. So they are ending that. And there doesn't seem to be any adultery or abuse here or anything like that. They're just saying, they literally said, this is what's best for our kids.
Because because they can only love fully when they are their best selves.
Which is
So it's purely
apparently
selfish.
apart.
It's
Right,
all
very
about
selfish.
self.
Yeah.
All about self.
So I've heard advertisements for a law firm here in the Cincinnati area. They say something aligned of end your marriage just like it began, with mutual respect. So they're promoting these ideas. There's been a TED Talk in the past that offered the idea of, just as we celebrate the union, we should have ceremonies or get-togethers to celebrate the dissolving of that union. So we have a dinner party to announce our divorce or something like that. And it's just, again, a sad commentary on where the culture is going apart from Christ. And a reminder to me as a father and as a leader in my church and as a teacher here at AIG to be able to promote those truths from God's word, to stand on the authority of his word, to point people to even what marriage represents as a picture of Christ and the church, that union we have with Christ is represented there in the marriage union, a union that will never be broken because Christ holds us.
Right, exactly.
All right, evolution education in the U.S. is getting better. So this is not something that we're really celebrating,
From
right?
whose perspective
From
is
whose
this getting
perspective?
better?
Yeah.
They did say that apparently, and it was, I just like the language they used here, almost like how appalled they were. That just a few years ago, there was only at 50% of the biology teachers in the secular schools were teaching strictly evolution and pretty much abandoning any mention of creationism. Is now up to 67%. So that's kind of what they were celebrating in a way.
Right.
Was that more teachers are pretty much aligning with the standards, we would say, because having both been teachers, Roger and I, in the school systems, they give you certain national standards and they expect you to align your teaching and curriculum with those standards. And so a lot of that comes along with that too.
Yeah, and there was a time I was an evolutionist before God saved me, and I actually wrote those standards and assessments for the state of Wyoming, and so I was involved in that process very heavily. And when we think about this, it's not, Ken Ham often says that religion wasn't taken out of schools. This is a religious view that's in the school systems. It's denying that there's any type of intelligent design, which they call a trendy slogan for creationism, and denies any role outside of naturalistic, materialistic forces, which can only be described as an atheistic worldview. And atheism is a religion with fundamental tenets that it teaches. And promoting evolution is indeed promoting those atheistic tenets as a religious view inside the schools.
Right. And so, I mean, when I was looking through this and I was trying to think, okay, so they're going to claim that because we have more evolution education, that's why more and more of this is being taught in the schools. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say that probably a lot of it is because the reason we're seeing an increase is because more Christians are leaving public schools because they just because again, because of conscious reasons, especially when it comes to a lot of the LGBT stuff, they can't teach there anymore. So the population of Christians is dwindling there. And it could also be because more Christians are becoming, sadly, believing in evolutionary ideas, things like theistic evolution, old earth creation, and so they don't have a problem with it, and or they're scared to bring it up because they could actually lose their job over it. And so there's probably, I think those are probably tend to be more the reason than the evolution education side of things. And here at Answers in Genesis, we don't advocate for forcing creation to be taught in the public school system, because there's no way I want some of these teachers who don't believe in it at all, who totally disagree with it, teaching it, because they're not going to teach it fairly or
if
correctly.
I would have been forced to teach that view before I believed it, I wouldn't have represented it fairly, because I believed evolution was the proper way to teach
So
those
that's
things
going to
and
be a
understand the
problem. So
world.
we don't encourage that. But what we do want is we want parents to have our great resources, and like Evolution Exposed, which this guy over here wrote.
Excellent book.
We have biology, we have earth science, we have 2 books in that area. And so you can get those, and it tells you what's being taught in these high school biology textbooks or earth science textbooks, and then how to confront that, how to deal with those issues, and what the truth is, starting with a biblical worldview and how science confirms that. So you have to equip yourselves as parents or grandparents, and then you can equip your children so that they can stand strong on God's word in the midst of all of that.
Because they do need to be familiar with evolutionary theory. They need to understand what it is and what it's saying, so that they can refute it from a biblical worldview.
And it's not just in public schools. This is in Christian
Christian
schools,
schools.
and this is in homeschool curricula. It's everywhere. So we really need to be highly aware of those things.
I thought it was a little sad that they did say there are under 6% now of teachers that will even stand on creationism and not teach evolutionary theory at all. So that's an extreme.
I'm surprised it's that high, honestly.
Yeah.
All right, this one's a little disturbing, we would say.
It's a lot disturbing, I
Burger
think.
King depicts mascot in gay kiss with Ronald McDonald for a new ad campaign. And this came out of the Netherlands? No, Finland.
Finland.
Right, came out of Finland.
But nothing today is going to stay where it's produced. It's going to bounce around on social media. So here we have this report, and you'll notice down there in the corner it says "Love conquers all." So this love wins, and love can accomplish anything type of attitude that we've heard for over a decade now, with respect to all the different sexual sins that are happening and the different perversions in society. It's the main argument that they have: love, love, love. And love means not pointing out someone's sin, but allowing anything to go, and you can make up your own truth and your own destiny.
That's what they said. Burger King upholds everyone's right to be just the way they are, and pretty much
Just like their
celebrate
burger
that.
slogan, have it just the way you want it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, like Roger was saying, they say love always wins, but this isn't love. Like, this is sinful, selfish people wanting to go rebelling against their creator. And what is love is God's love, because God is love. He is the very definition of love, and he defines that, and he defines what is right and what is wrong in his word. And the love that we need to be sharing with people is the gospel, right? God's love for them, and that his son paid the price for their sins so that they can know Christ as their Savior and live eternally with God in heaven someday. And like we keep saying, we need to speak the truth in love, right? We need to confront people, because the most loving thing we can do is say, this is wrong,
Yeah,
right?
and it's
This
not
is
true
sin.
just for homosexuality, any sexual sin,
Right,
whether
any
it's
sin.
heterosexual or homosexual or any other thing. It's not some special category, but it is something that we need to be able to confront. Now, the artwork that they chose for this, I noticed a very interesting feature. So here is the
full
artwork
picture.
in full form.
Right.
Do you
Oh, I
notice
see it.
anything interesting about the shape of that?
Yeah,
It's
I
actually
just saw
formed
that. I just
into the
noticed
shape
that.
of a heart.
Heart.
Yeah.
So they're using very creative, intentional strategies to communicate those things. And that's a reminder for us, as we communicate the truth of the gospel and the hope of Christ, that we should be doing those things with excellence and with quality,
Right.
like we're trying to do here at the museum. So the world is using its best devices to accomplish its goals, and we need to be doing the same with
Even
the talents that
McDonald's.
God's given us.
Even using hamburgers,
That's what
right?
It's another
to-
instance where we have another company, another enterprise going into a realm that's outside of what what their focus is, which is supposed to be hamburgers.
All right, well, we're out of time for today, and so we will see you back next Monday.
We thank